Hey everybody, Peach here, and today we're going to be covering gym flooring. And for those of you who are already subscribed, you may notice that I'm nearing the completion of my basement gym remodel. And in an upcoming video, I'm going to walk you through that complete transformation process, chronicling everything I did along the way, as well as give you a gym tour highlighting a bunch of new equipment that I've recently acquired. So if that kind of thing interests you and you haven't subscribed already, make sure you subscribe to be alerted the moment that that episode drops. Now the product that I just installed are 3/8 inch thick hammer-clad rubber tiles from Freedom Fitness Equipment, and my affiliate links with my promo code are down in the video description below. But before we get deep into this specific product, along with some helpful installation tips, let's talk about what your options are. We're going to cover these 5 popular options. And they aren't the only options, but they certainly are the most popular options. All right, let's start with an option that no one should consider. EVA foam tiles. And sometimes they're going to look obviously like foam, and other times they'll have a thin layer of rubber on top to give the appearance that they're made of solid rubber, but they're not, okay? Now the primary issue with these is they will compress under the weight of your body and your equipment, okay? And when you're pressing upwards, you want to press against a solid surface, not one where you're gonna sink down into it, okay? Also, if you need to move your equipment around and you need to slide it on these things, guess what? They're gonna become ripped apart and they can even tear, okay? They're cheap for a reason, okay? Steer clear. Even if they got your favorite characters on them, they're just not worth it. All right, next option, horse stall mats. Now, I am not a horse stall mat hater, okay? If you got horse stall mats and you love them, that's awesome, okay? Now, my old gym has horse stall mats. My current garage gym has horse stall mats. So if you're dead set on using horse stall mats, watch this video right up here where I cover everything from installation to getting the stink out. Now the primary reason why people go with horse stall mats is because they're cheap, they're durable, and you can pick them up locally so you don't have to pay for freight. Okay, so why didn't I go with horse stall mats? Couple reasons. Number one, the smell. The smell of horse stall mats can be quite nasty, especially in a basement gym. If you're in a garage, you can just open up your garage door, but I can't do that down here. Now, in that aforementioned video, I do teach you how to expedite the process of getting those VOCs to escape, but again, it's a very time-consuming process. Also, cutting horse stall mats perfectly straight is next to impossible. And this is what my current gym looks like, okay? You can see there are a ton of corners, and that would require a ton of cuts. And you can get close to straight, but none of them are gonna be perfectly straight. Okay, now that doesn't matter if you plan on putting Gorilla Tape over all the cuts and over all the seams, okay? Because you're gonna cover it up, right? Well, I didn't want tape lines all over this gym, okay? Now, if I was in a garage gym competing for square footage with lawnmowers and my wife's minivan and kids' bikes and all that good stuff, I really wouldn't care about aesthetics. So I would just go with horse stall mats. But if you have a dedicated space like I do, or you dedicated your garage to your gym, it's nice to have it look nice, which is why I went with this. I don't want tape lines all over the space, okay? Now lastly, getting about 25 horse stall mats down here into the basement would be quite the chore. Now all that being said, if you still want 4x6 mats without the stink, Ashton over at Freedom Fitness Equipment does have 3/4 inch 4x6 mats that don't stink, made in the USA, okay? And they don't cost much more than horse stall mats do. So that too is an option to consider. All right, so 2 more options left, rolled rubber flooring or rubber tiles, okay? Now, these typically don't come in 3/4 inch thickness, but don't let that dissuade you. Do you really need 3/4 inch thickness throughout your entire gym, or just where you're deadlifting? Now, if you're doing strongman and you don't want uneven surfaces, you want to be able to drop stuff all over the place, then knock yourself out. But for me, I only really need it where I'm deadlifting. So you can either buy or build a deadlift platform or just put some 4x6 3/4 inch mats in a corner on top of your rolled rubber flooring or your tiles, okay? You don't need it everywhere, typically speaking. So you're gonna go with rolled rubber or tiles. Now, if this room was just a basic rectangle and all the corners were square and I didn't have a column in the center to contend with, I would have gone with rolled rubber, which was my original plan. But after talking to Ashton over at Freedom Fitness Equipment, I decided to go with the 2x2 tiles. Now, Ashton carries the mats, the rolled rubber, and the tiles all made by Hammerclad, okay? They're all made in the USA. They have no odor. They're antibacterial, all good stuff, okay? But since this room does have this column and does have a bunch of weird corners and they're not all square, I was worried that if I mismeasure or miscut one of the rolls, one or more of the rolls, that would be a very expensive mistake. Whereas if I miscut or mismeasure one of these things, who cares? You know, you buy a few extra because that's a possibility, okay? Much cheaper mistake. Now, also, since your corners might not be 100% square, the gaps on rolled rubber flooring will be more pronounced because they're longer. Whereas with these, the gaps are better hidden because of these cut out puzzle pieces. You might see a slight gap if your room isn't 100% square between the pieces, but it's minimal, okay? And you can't really see it unless you get really, right up on it, okay? So that's why I went with the tiles. Now, let's cover some installation tips. All right, tip number 1, only buy centers. And by centers, I mean there's these puzzle piece nubs on all 4 sides. Now, alternatively, you can do some in-depth calculation and measuring and figure out how many you need where they might have a factory edge on 1 or more sides, okay? But if you miscalculate and you're left flat-footed, you're gonna have to be waiting on a second shipment to finish your project. So I would recommend just buying these. In fact, I ordered 10 of these and I didn't use any of them, okay? I only use centers, okay? So to cut these nubs off, it's pretty easy. Let me show you how. All right, so now we're gonna get to cutting. So what we need is one 16 by 24 framing square and one razor knife with a fresh razor blade, okay? And I'm putting this on top of an old cabinet here, but you can do this on the ground too, but I think you're gonna get a better cut if you're standing upright and not hunched over on the ground. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna align the edge of this framing square with the factory edge between the nubs here, okay? So line the edge of that framing square between this, so on and so forth, okay? And you're gonna get a clean cut. Okay, now I'm gonna pinch this so that I know that the edge of the framing square is aligned with the edge between the nubs here, okay? Just pinch along the way, okay? And when you're happy with its positioning and its alignment, go ahead and clamp it down. Okay, now we're gonna take this guy and just run the blade along the edge of your straight edge here. Okay, it's that easy, okay? No multiple scoring like you do with Horstall mats. It's that easy, okay? So just repeat until you got a straight edge. Okay, straight cut. All right, installation tip number 2. Now, you're gonna wanna start laying out along the wall that's closest to your gym's entrance. And here's the hot tip, okay? Do a complete row before moving on to any subsequent row, okay? Unfortunately for me, I went and I did some of the edge pieces at the very end. The problem with doing that is you're not gonna be able to move the tiles once everything's laid out, okay? Everything's locked in, okay? Because it's so heavy and so wide, there's so much surface area. So what would happen is I would try to get it in and if it wasn't 100% square, the walls weren't square, it wouldn't quite fit. So you get your rubber mallet out and you start banging it in, and then it would cause other adjoining pieces to have their seams open up just a little bit. Okay? Now, you can't see that on camera, but I know they're there. It doesn't really bother me. I know it still looks amazing in here. It looks way better than, horse stall mats with tape lines. So it just bothers me a little bit. So take my advice, go row by row before starting a new row. All right, next tip, get a good, sturdy rubber mallet that's a little heavy. Don't get the cheapest one they make, okay? This will help drive the pieces together. Also, get some good work gloves, okay? Because you will get blisters on your fingers handling all this rubber for hours and hours and hours if you don't use these. All right, next tip. Now, the mats do come with instructions, but unfortunately for me, the shipping company put tape over the instructions and kind of ripped it. So it was a little hard to read, but I can make it out. Here's the most important piece of the instructions. There's a top side and a bottom side to these. So as you're holding it, okay, you'll notice they're all puzzle pieces except in the center, it's not a two-headed puzzle piece. It's just one-headed, right? So as you're facing it, the right side should be facing downward. Okay, so I know this is the bottom, okay? This is what I want to, this is the top, okay? So if you put them all upside down, they're just not going to look right. All right, last tip. You're going to want to leave a 1/4 inch gap around the perimeter of the installation. This will allow for natural expansion and contraction due to temperature fluctuations. If you don't do this and they start expanding due to heat, okay, the tiles are going to start buckling. And if you leave too great a gap, guess what? When they contract, they're going to pull away from the wall and you're going to see the seam all around against the wall, okay? So again, 1/4 inch. Now, also, take your baseboards as you're laying them out along the wall and make sure that the baseboards are covering up that gap, okay? You don't want to wait till the very end and realize, oh, my baseboards aren't thick enough and I can see the gap. Now what do? Start all over again or have to go buy new, thicker baseboards? You don't want that to happen. All right, hammer-clad gym flooring from Freedom Fitness Equipment, a great addition to any home gym. Now for more details, be sure to go to designbuildlift.com. And to purchase gym flooring or anything from Freedom Fitness Equipment, including their blemished products, which you can save a ton of money, please consider making those purchases via the product links down in the video description below, along with my promo code to save you 5% off. And when you make a purchase using that link, I do get paid a small commission, but at no additional cost to you. All right, that does it for this episode, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next episode. So be sure to subscribe to the channel to be alerted the moment the next episode drops.